Okay guys, we are talking about 2.5 to 2.6 today, factoring polynomials in standard form. So if you don't remember what standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so we are factoring polynomials that look like this. So our steps for factoring polynomials of that form. Number one, first, always look for any GCF and pull this out. GCF is greatest common factor. Okay. So if your a value is a negative number, then your GCF will also be negative. Greatest common factor is the number that can be divided into all of your other terms, the biggest number that can be divided into all of your other terms. Okay. Step 2, multiply A and C. Okay, your first number and your last number. If you don't see a value out front for A, it is 1. Just like if we don't see a number in front of a variable, we put a 1 in front of it. Step 3, find the factors of A times C that add to B. So after we multiply that first and last numbers, we want to find the numbers that I can multiply to get the number, but that will also add to our middle number. And we'll see this in our examples. Step 4, we're going to rewrite our original trinomial, but instead of bx, we are going to replace it with the two numbers that we found in step 3. And then finally, factor by grouping, which we have already gone over. Okay. So the first example has been done for us. I'm going to get my highlighter out here so we can see where A, B, and C are going, what we're doing with them. So our original trinomial is x squared minus 7x plus 12. So I'm just going to highlight our A, B, and C, and remember, I don't see a number out front, so it must be a 1. I'm going to highlight that one in yellow. I'll do our B value, the middle number is negative 7, and our C value is 12. Okay, so first thing I look for is any greatest common factor. Is there a number that can be divided into 1, negative 7, and 12? Do they have anything in common? No, the only thing they have in common is 1. So we don't have a greatest common factor to pull out. Step 2, multiply A and C. So you can see that arrow pointing off to the side there. We have C, which is 12, times A, which was 1. Okay. So we have multiplied 1 times 12, which gives us 12, which is the same as C. Because if A is 1, then we're really just dealing with that last number, C. That's step 2. Step 3, find the factors of AC, or the factors of 12, that are going to add to B. Remember, B is negative 7. That's that green number I've highlighted. So we want to find two numbers that will multiply to get 12, but that add to get negative 7. Okay. So the factors of 12, we have 1 times 12, that's the top one. And then 2 times 6 also gives me 12. 3 times 4 also gives me 12. So out of those options, what combination will add to get 7? That's why we have that 3 times 4 circled, because 3 times 4 is 12, but negative 3 plus negative 4 gives me negative 7. How do we get negative 7? Negative 3 plus negative 4. Okay, so that was step 3. Okay. Step 4, rewrite your trinomial and replace negative 7 with the two numbers we found before. So negative 3 times negative 4. Okay, so when we rewrite it, we write it x squared minus 3x minus 4x plus 12, because that minus 3x minus 4x is what gives us negative 7x in the original problem. Okay, so that was step 4. And now step 5 is to finish by factoring with grouping. So we factor out our greatest common factor and split it up, and then we have our factored answer, our final answer there at the bottom. Okay. Let's do an example together. Number 2, I'm going to actually change this problem because that problem that's written in there, we cannot factor. So I'm going to cross this out. The problem that I want you to write down is 2x squared plus 6x plus 4. Okay. So we're actually going to factor this problem. So step 1, before actually I start step 1, I'm going to highlight my A, B, and C so I can see where they're going. So the number out front, A, in this problem it's 2. B is positive 6. And C is positive 4. Okay. So the very first thing I want to do is look for any greatest common factor. So is there a number that we can pull out of 2, 6, and 4? Yes, 2 goes into 2, 6, and 4. It's the biggest number that goes into those 3 things. So I'm going to write 2, and then I'm going to write some parentheses. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take that original problem and divide all those numbers by 2, because that's what we pulled out front. So 2x squared divided by 2 is just 1x squared. And then 6x divided by 2 is 3x. And then 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that is how we have factored out that greatest common factor. That was step 1. Step 2. We want to multiply A and C. So we're multiplying not the A and C from the original problem. I'm going to get my highlighter out here again. We're multiplying A and C from our parentheses. We're going to put that 2 out front to the side for a second. I'm not going to worry about it until the very end. But we want to now take the parentheses, what's in the parentheses, and use that to factor. Okay? So, A times C, well, A is 1, times C is 2. So A times C is 2. That was step 2. Step 3. Find the factors of AC, which we find out was 2, that add to B. Well, what are the factors of 2? Whoops, I forgot to write down what I was saying. Factors of 2. Well, the only ones that I can think of that multiply to get 2 is 1 times 2. So we want to see, does 1 times 2 also add to 3? Well, 1 plus 2 is 3. So yes, that works. The numbers we're looking for here are 1 and 2. Okay. That takes us to step 4. Rewrite our trinomial. So the very first piece stays the same. Okay. And I'm now going to use that 2 out front. But when I rewrite this, instead of saying 3x in the middle, I'm going to write plus 1x and plus 2x. That's where that 1 and 2 that we circled in step 3 goes. Now we have plus 1x and plus 2x instead of 3. Okay. So now we want to use grouping. So I'm going to split it right in the middle. Okay, so we have 2 in the front and 2 in the back. I want to, this is step 5 by the way, sorry. Pull out our greatest common factor. So I'm going to leave the 2 alone for the second, the one that's out in the front. The greatest common factor of 1x squared and 1x is just x. Okay. And what do I have left? Well, I have x plus 1. And then on the back end, the greatest common factor of 2x and 2 is 2. And what do I have left? X plus 1. Which is good that we have our common binomial, right? Our x plus 1 on both of those is called our common binomial. So now I can group. We have our x and 2, and our x plus 1 and x plus 1. So we have x plus 2 and x plus 1. And then now finally bring that 2 back down out front. And we have our final answer. Okay. Let's do another one together. Number 3. So, step 1, is there a greatest common factor? Okay. Is there a number that goes into -3, 6, and -3? Yes, and because that number out front is a negative, our greatest common factor is negative. So the greatest common factor here is negative. What number goes into 3, 6, and 3? 3. And now what gets left behind? If I divide all those numbers by -3, I'm left with x squared minus 2x plus 1. Right? Because -3 divided by -3 is +1. That's the number that gets put in front of x squared. So write that a little bit nicer. 6 divided by -3 is -2. That's the number in the middle. And then -3 divided by -3 is +1 again at the end. So that was step 1. Step 2, multiply A and C. Okay, so my A, the number out front, is 1. I'm going to highlight B in green, and C is blue here at the end. Okay, so step 2, take A and C. So 1 times 1. That's a really easy one. That's just 1. Okay, that's it for step 2. Step 3. Okay, we want to find the factors of 1. There's only one thing we can multiply to get 1. That's 1 times 1. So we found the factors. Now we need to check, does 1 plus 1 give me, can I get -2 by combining 1 and 1? Okay, so how can I get -2? I can't do it with +1 and +1, but I can do it with -1 and -1. Okay. So these are the only factors of 1, but those are also the numbers we're going to use to get -2. We just have to make them negative, which is okay. We can do that, because if I multiply -1 and -1 together, I'm going to end up with a +1 as my last number as C. Okay. So I'm going to use my green here. Whoops. Maybe. Okay. -1 and -1 is what got us -2. I didn't do that in the problem before, but 1 plus 2 is what got us 3, and that's why we replaced 3 with 1x and 2x. Okay. So step 4 now, rewrite our problem. Our negative 3 gets out front still. I have 1x squared, but instead of negative 2x that we had in the original problem from step 1, I'm going to replace that with negative 1x and negative 1x. So now you can see I've replaced negative 2 with negative 1 and negative 1. Now we're moving to step 5, which is to group. So I'm going to split that right down the middle there. Okay, the negative 3 is going to hang out for a minute until the end. I'm just worried about what's in parentheses for a second. We have 1x squared minus 1x is our front part. So the greatest common factor here is just x. And if I get rid of an x from both of those, I'm left with x minus 1. On the back end, we have negative 1x plus 1. The greatest common factor here is negative 1. Because remember, if that number out front is negative, then your greatest common factor is negative. And then positive 1 divided by negative 1 leaves me with minus 1 in there. So it's a good thing we have matching binomials. Our common binomial there. And then we have x and minus 1. So now I can write my final answer. That negative 3 comes back out front, x minus 1, and x minus 1. Okay, let's do number 4. Number 4, there is no greatest common factor because the number out front is 1, and there's no number that can go into 1, 7, and 12 other than 1. We don't ever have 1 as our greatest common factor that we can pull out. We don't ever pull out a 1 because it doesn't change anything. So I'm going to highlight my A, B, and C real quick. Okay, so step 1, I'm just going to say there's no GCF. Okay, so we can move on to step 2. So step 2, you take your A times C, so 1 times 12, and that gives me 12. Okay, and if you are really lost, you don't know where I'm finding that 1 and 12, 12 was the C value that we highlighted blue up above, and 1 is the A value that we highlighted yellow from up above. So we want to take that number 12, and we want to find factors of 12. What can I multiply to get 12? Well, we already know we can multiply 1 times 12 to get 12. We can multiply 2 and 6, and we can multiply 3 and 4. Okay. So that's the first part of step 3. The second part is to figure out which of those combinations will give me 7 as an answer when I add them. If I add 1 and 12, can I get 7? No. 2 and 6, if I add those, I get 8, not 7. But if I add 3 and 4 together, I do get 7. So this is the combination we want. And now we can see that 3 plus 4 is 7. That's what we're replacing 7 with up above. So that moves on to step 4. Rewrite our trinomial. So we have x squared out front, but instead of putting plus 7x in the middle, I'm going to put plus 3x and plus 4x. And then at the end, we still have plus 12. So you can see I replaced 7 with 3 and 4. And then finally step 5, grouping. So I'm going to split it right down the middle there. The greatest common factor of x squared and 3x is x. And I'm left with x plus 3. The greatest common factor of 4x and 12 is 4. And I'm left with x plus 3 when I factor out a 4. It's a good thing we have our common binomial and our x and 4 out front. So my final answer, we have x plus 4 and x plus 3. Okay. Hey, I'm going to stop this video. I'm going to make a part 2. I just don't want them to get super long so that you don't want to watch them. So I'm going to stop this video here and we'll do a part 2 for the rest of the exam.